Call the City Council meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Brian, would you start us off?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Treasurer, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilperson Alvarez?
That's why I wear my
Councilperson
mask.
Pikorsky? Here. Councilperson Geishers? Here. Councilperson Clem? Councilperson Williams?
Here.
Councilperson Gully?
Here.
Councilperson Zilli?
Here. It's the master. Yes.
We have the introduction of ordinances.
Scott, can you take the salary ordinance, please?
Yes. Salary ordinance, budget year 2022, ordinance number 21-23. An ordinance establishing the amount of salaries and compensation to be paid to all appointed employees and officers of the City of Portage, Porter of the City of Portage, Porter County, Indiana, for the year 2022. Be it and hereby is ordained by the Common Council of the City of Portage, Porter County, Indiana, as follows. Salary schedule as presented by Mayor Sue Lynch to the Common Council of the City of Portage, Porter County, Indiana. That from the first pay date in January of 2022 through the last pay date in December of 2022. The pay schedule for the employees and officers of the City of Portage, Porter County, Indiana, is fixed as follows. Elected officials: Mayor, $83,466.23. Clerk Treasurer, $77,404.56. Common Council member, $17,077.50. Let the record reflect that this ordinance 21-23 has been read in its entirety. Motion to suspend.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend. Is there any questions?
The only thing that I would remind everybody is that on the elected officials, there are no pay increases again for this year. And obviously, due to our budget constraints, that's what we chose.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Is there any discussion? If not, Clerk Treasurer, will you please call the roll?
Councilperson Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilperson Pikorsky?
Yes.
Councilperson Geishers?
Yes.
Councilperson Williams?
Yes.
Councilperson Gully?
Yes.
Councilperson Zilli?
Yes.
Go back to, where's the agenda? Is it up here?
Budget adoption.
Let me read it. We have the 2022 budget adoption, ordinance 21-22.
Deb, could you read that for us, please?
Be it ordained, resolved by the City of Portage Common Council that, I am reading this.
Yep.
Okay. But for the expenses of Portage Civil City for the year ending December 31st, 2022, the sums herein specified are hereby appropriated and ordered, set apart out of the several funds herein named, and for the purposes herein specified, subject to the laws governing the same. Such sums herein appropriated shall be held to include all expenditures authorized to be made during the year, unless otherwise expressly stipulated and provided for by law. In addition, for the purposes of raising revenue to meet the necessary expenses of Portage Civil City, the property tax levies and property tax rates as herein specified are included herein. Budget Form 4-B for all funds must be completed and submitted in the manner prescribed by the Department of Local Government Finance. This ordinance resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage and approval by the City of Portage Common Council. Let the record reflect this has been read in its entirety. Motion to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Is there any discussion?
Yes. So we do have a presentation. Nina, do you want to kick us off, or Deb? Just talking about the budget process, then we'll dive into the presentation.
Yeah, I'll do the budget process, and then
Okay.
you just fill in all the stuff I forget. So, obviously, our budget process starts with meeting our department heads and what they needed, what they wanted, based on what we're actually going to get from our levies, and then we meet as a committee, myself, Brian, Scott, Colin joined us, the mayor joined us, Nina joined us, and then we sit and we have to make cuts because there's only so much money coming in the door. So that has taken the better part of several weeks, even months. We met again last night till about 9:30, and Nina crunched a multitude of numbers to make sure we got everything and has it together. And it was quite a process, but it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that's all the money that we get, but it's what we have to live with, and we have done the very best that we can. And I think you're going to see some information from this presentation that will show you where this money goes.
If I may,
Sure.
Chairman Podorski, thank you for your efforts, and Brian serving on the committee, and Mayor and Clerk Treasurer. It is a arduous process, to say the least. The other thing I think we need to communicate to the public and the folks that are here is we're restricted where we can spend certain funds. And it's not that we just have money in the bank and we can put it wherever we want. We are restricted by law where we can spend that money, and that's important to realize that. And again, in the presentation, I think you'll see some of the restraints that we have to work with every year, year in and year out. So the committee, as they do every year, takes this process very seriously and works very hard to try to meet the needs of the departments. But at the same time, you have to realize and appreciate the fact there are constraints.
Nina,
That's all I
could you
have.
Fill in like some of the things that had to be changed for this year that hadn't been done in the past that also added to.
So you guys all know that our chart of accounts had to get updated. That wasn't fun. It'll be good moving forward it'll be good moving forward because it gives accurate reporting. It squares things away. I can't speak to how things were done in the past. I can say, for example, the appropriation line item was never updated for liability insurance that is paid for out of the general fund. So the line item was always $150,000. Well, we actually have like $304,000.
Yeah.
Because we used to have the riverboat fund, cable TV fund, and that was kind of a fund where if there's no money to pay it, then we'll take it out of here.
Right.
That's not okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. Because you don't know how much things actually cost, just like our health insurance. Now that we don't have the E&B fund and that levy is shifted to the general fund, we're able to actually tell and see what's going on, and the task fees and other things like that. So it wasn't just a budget process, it was an overall reshuffling the deck, I guess. I don't know what else
How
to
about
say.
that separation of
And then-
sanitary and
Right, and then we separated the sanitation fund, we got that out of the general fund, created its own fund because it is a user fee, similar to like an enterprise, like utilities, because it is something that can be sold. And so it needs to be used, it needs to be accounted for as such. We need to be able to determine whether or not our trash fee is supporting the department. MVH restricted. I know I crushed Randy's budget, and it wasn't anyone's fault. We were required by the state back in 2018 to create an MVH restricted fund. That wasn't done. It wasn't done until last year. I reached out to State Board and asked them, okay, I created the fund, but how much do I owe it? Because half of our MVH distributions we get from the state is supposed to go into that fund, and it can only be used for the construction or reconstruction of roads. And luckily, we only had to put in our 2020 distributions from the state, but that took the MVH budget, the street department budget, it took a hit of $750,000. Sorry, not my fault. It's it's the state. I get why they did it. The reason they did that law in 2018 is because they wanted to ensure that when the gas tax increase happened, that it was for infrastructure and that roads were really getting repaved. I get it, but we also have a department to run. So, so there was just a lot of things. I'm happy to answer any questions after.
And I'll just say, I mean, I've gone through this process. This will be my 6th budget from being on the council, and Scott been doing this as long as I have. The mayor had done it longer. This is the first time I can remember the budget committee, the mayor, the clerk treasurer all sitting down together multiple times to go through budget line by line, literally every line item, and meeting with department heads and talking through their budgets and understanding their budgets. I mean, this is, I think, the best budget process we've gone through in my time on the council. I don't know, Mayor, you've been involved a little bit longer, and
In my 12 years on the council, this never happened where we all sat down in the same room and hammered this out. And it's very important because the council is the fiduciary body of the city. You should be knowing what those numbers represent and how that money is divided up. Because you report to the taxpayer and you need to have answers when they ask you. It was a pleasure to sit down with everybody, even though it was countless hours, because there was no arguing or fighting. There was agonizing comments over cutting things and things that we hated to cut. We hated to cut them. But you can't write a check out of an empty checkbook, and we were not going to do that. We are a responsible group of people.
So Colin, do you want to?
certainly.
So we can get into the.
So first, just to go over some top line takeaways from the budget, just overall. And Debbie, Nina, Mayor, Budget Committee, feel free to add in. One of the biggest things that we were looking at this year is the city's losing about $2.3 million to tax caps in 2022. So these are the constitutionally put in place tax caps of the state of Indiana, put in place, I think, in 2010. So this reduced our overall levy and property tax caps by about $2.3 million. So overall, our budget, now this is just the city of Portage. This doesn't include the redevelopment commission. This doesn't include the sanitary or stormwater utility. They have their own budgets. It's projected to be a little over 4.7 million, close to 40.7 million, close to 40.8 million for 2022. So a very large budget. So by law, cities in Indiana, we are required to pass balanced funded budgets. We are not able, the DLGF will reject our budgets if they aren't balanced. So that alone, there's some finagling that you can do, but at the end of the day, you have to balance the budget. We can't run deficits.
As well as, we can't make up income numbers.
Right, they do check our income numbers. So if we say we think we're gonna get this, they are spot on every year. What exactly they think we're going to project. I mean, Nina, you can talk more about this.
Yeah.
In 21.
So in 2019, so after the budget process happens, by December 15th of every year, the DLGF, which is the Department of Local Government Finance, sends me the 1782 notice, which is the review and approval of our budget. So if you don't have the revenue to support the revenue and the levy to support each fund, they'll slash it.
Right.
And because you have to have a funded budget. If you have reserves and your levy and your miscellaneous revenue doesn't support your budget, they know what your reserves are because you have a financial worksheet that you have to submit by June 30th every year. So they know what your June 30th cash balances are. So they know if you can support it or not. Well, I can't speak to what happened in the past, but before taking office in 2020, we had gotten the city got the 1782 notice back and was told, you have to cut 2.2 million. Like what? Where are you gonna do that? So we ended up happened to, that's part of the reason that we had to get the GO bond, was to, and get clever about it, because you can't borrow for operating expenses. So we did the GO bond, we refunded capital purchases going back to 2017 to refund those in order basically to get operating cash, because we couldn't cut 2.2.
And our general checking had $12,000.
Right, and we walked in having $11,906 in the general fund, and $3.4 million in outstanding temp loans. So we couldn't pay bills until we got our tax anticipation warrant at the end of January.
So Nina, can you just talk a little bit about how close DLGF usually gets?
Oh, they were spot on. So had we not had the windfall of, the one-time windfall, I should say, of the GO bond proceeds, the $1.194 million in the first round of CARES money, $219,000 in dormanted funds, or outstanding voided checks. We had like 1.3 in dormanted funds, 1.3 million, and that included the EMB fund and everything like that. And we still ended the year, despite that, it was about 4.3 million, I want to say altogether, off the top of my head, windfall to the general fund. We still ended the year with 1.8 million. They weren't wrong.
Right, DLGF, they're spot on. So Debbie, this year, can you talk a little bit about what we budgeted towards? Because in the past, we've had to cut $2 million after we already adopted the budget, DLGF.
You mean the extra stuff?
Like the extra stuff, right?
So we wanted to help the fire department, so we're funding 2 of the 5 paramedics that were requested. 1 additional police officer that was requested, code enforcement, some other training issues that were in there. There will be a piece of equipment for streets,
I think streets.
Streets, yeah. That will come out of wheel tax. That will help. And then your basic, obviously contractual pay raises and contracts are in there. There were some other pay raises in there. So, I mean, and then the rest is more of operating.
So just one final key takeaway, just talking about the largest portion of our budget, as with most cities, the largest portion of our budget are our employees and our salaries and our benefits. It's about 61% of the city's total budget. So in terms of departments, we've broken out each department. There are a few here, special use funds, we'll talk about, debt services, legacy pension funds. But this just breaks down by each department in terms of the total budget. So I don't know if anybody has any comments here, but this is just how the budget shakes out each year.
Right.
Our largest 2 departments are our police and fire department, as you would expect. In terms of special use funds, Nina, do you want to talk about these? These would be like LIT, CCD, and what those are and how we budget for those.
So CCD is a levy fund. It can be used for any lawful purpose, same as LIT. It used to be more like economic development. Now it's just
Can you define LIT?
LIT.
What is LIT?
Local income tax. And that generates a little over $3 million every year, which honestly is supplementing our severance payouts, our retiree health insurance reimbursements, things that the general fund just can't support.
Right, the CCD, we're gonna get squad.
Yes, so
Sorry.
CCD is going to mainly be used, well, not mainly, but a good chunk of it next year will be used to pay an enterprise lease. We're trying to get the city on a fleet program, you know, so our vehicles don't get old and we can sell them, re-up every year, yeah, and get the most for that, other funds.
And then debt services and the legacy pension funds. Can you just explain those two?
So the legacy pension funds are like the 1925 pensions for police and fire. We pay out those funds. It's not a levy fund, but we do get reimbursed from the state after we submit reports for student distributions. What else?
Debt services.
Debt services is bond payments. There's one outstanding park bond and then RGO bond.
Okay.
All of our other debt services, redevelopment commission.
Any questions from council before I go to the next slide?
I don't have any.
Okay. This just same information, just in graphical form. So then we break it out. We broke it out by category, showing where category-wise everything is flowing in. So again, our largest cost categories are salaries and wages and employee benefits. It represents about a little over 61% of our total budget each year, just on the city side. So this doesn't include sanitary and stormwater utilities as well. So our employee benefit cost is even higher when you include that salary benefit cost on that side. In addition, like Nina said, we have about 1.5 million in debt service payments each year. That's our park bond and our
So-
GO bond.
Just to stop you a second. So prior to all the changes that have happened thus far, how much was that debt service before? Do you know? How much
We just
higher?
had, we only had the park bond. There was an old
Okay.
stormwater bond, actually, that was paid off in 2020.
Because you paid,
And that was the city, not actual stormwater. It was before pre-USB, or the stormwater fee. No, the bulk of our debt service is redevelopment commission. There was even the redevelopment authority that was established because the redevelopment commission was at its constitutional debt limit, and it was a workaround to borrow more.
Right.
right,
And then again, just representing that in graphical form. And then finally, the general fund, which is our main fund. It's our biggest fund. It's what property tax revenues fund. As you can see, the large majority of that is in public safety, with the fire department and the police department. Street department is funded through motor vehicle highway fund, as we all know. They're their own fund. Same with sanitation, they're their own fund. But the general fund, of the vast majority of it is in public safety at the city.
So with the debt service, I guess I should say,
Yeah.
part of the rest of the remaining part of the GO bond, a portion was for city hall renovations with the elevator, that portion, but also they weren't considered debt service because they were equipment lease purchase payments, but the rest of the remaining of the GO bond proceeds was to pay all those off because there were
All the
so
other-
many. Because we only have so much money that the
Right.
city can't always afford equipment, so then you have to do
Right.
lease purchases.
Right.
But then it was unmanageable. It got to the point, so.
That's the presentation.
Now, will this be available, excuse me, over the internet, social media?
It's on the live stream. We'll post
It's
it on
live
the city
streaming
Facebook
right now,
page. Yep.
Ferdinand. It's-
And we'll put it on the city
Yeah.
Facebook page.
yeah.
We've actually thought about doing it again on Tuesday night because we have a council meeting on Tuesday night as well. So maybe people that didn't come in on tonight's meeting
Sure.
will have the opportunity because we feel it's really important that the taxpayers know what happens to their money. I mean, we're their employees, so we need to let them know what we're doing with the monies that we receive, so.
And the budget has to be adopted prior to November 1st.
Yes,
Right,
that's why
we're
we're
here tonight.
having this meeting tonight.
So I have a question regarding that as well. November 1st deadline, here we are on the 27th. Is there any way to have pushed that back or forward, you know what I mean? Or is there any way we could not have been a little bit more under the gun and have had 2 special meetings and the whole bit? I mean, other municipalities have passed theirs, last month? Is there anything we did that's different or anything they did that's different?
Well, I guess we were waiting on Enterprise a little bit,
Right.
trying to see that.
Determine the cost of the enterprise fleet. I mean, it's not a simple process. I mean, we have a lot of money to cut out of the budget. I think we started somewhere north of 50 million and it had to get down under 40 million or 41 million. So just from the budget committee's perspective, I mean, it's not an easy process. It takes time. We set the adoption date, the original adoption date of October 19th back in September.
September.
It just wasn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't
Yeah, we-
feasible. We just weren't ready to present it. I mean, in the past, we've presented it about this time. I mean, it takes time. There's a lot of inputs from Nina's office.
MVH was a big
Right.
issue too.
Right.
And
That's
beyond
what-
that, it's just with all the changes in account codes and the changes from the state creating MVH restricted, moving things over, it just took more time. My hope, I think the hope of the entire budget committee is that this happens sooner next year. But the reality is,
Sometimes we want to make sure we have good numbers too, and
Right.
the longer we wait, that's one more
Be
month of
closer
numbers
to
Right.
year
we'll
to
get.
date.
So
And-
when was the first meeting you had? The first budget meeting?
Gosh, we met in.
Oh,
August?
yeah, we've been
well, the
meeting for a
mayor-
long
Yeah, the
time.
mayor, I have met several times.
Yes.
Brian and I, Scott couldn't be at one of them, and then the 3 of us have met three times?
I think the budget committee met 3 times and then the full group, myself, the budget committee, the mayor, the clerk treasurer, we've met 3 times. And
then
they've been
I've
long
met-
meetings.
I've met the department heads
Yeah.
throughout the last several months.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into the budget process
It's not-
to get it right. I mean, you can do
I
it
mean-
and make it wrong.
I mean, good for other municipalities if they could do theirs that quick.
I think the county just adopted their budget yesterday. I think.
So,
And I think another point is, and I think this is something we've just never really done in the past. I mean, we went line item by line item, like what was the actual cost?
Right.
What are the increases we're
Many
expecting?
times.
Many times, we went over this many
Many
times. And it just takes time. I mean, we have till November 1st. I think we'd rather take more time and get it right than take less time and have to come back next year and amend the budget.
well,
And for-
And do additional appropriations
or
or
I think we
transfers.
wanted to make sure that we got it as close to what we believe, so the state maybe will get lucky and they won't cut it.
And
more.
Ferdinand, I want to say that, having been on the council for 12 years, I've experienced many, many meetings that took place to try to get the budget together. I feel that in previous years, being on the council, a lot of the council people were not even involved in the budget. When it was time to approve the budget, here it is. That isn't happening here. You are the fiduciary body of the city, and you need to know what that budget says. And you need to understand it, not just the bottom line. And I think there was a lot of painstaking work that went into getting this budget because of that. There have been times that we were amending the salary ordinances into January. And I mean, I feel like this is victorious that we got it done in November, because there's times we've been having
We did one in
multiple
July.
meetings in late November and,
Yeah.
and in December.
Well, one year we didn't pass the salary ordinance until July.
I know.
It took 6 months. And I mean, this isn't over. I mean, MVH still needs, we're still gonna have to cut, the DLGF is gonna tell us to cut more out of MVH.
done.
And so we're still working on it. Randy, I gotta commend him. He was with us all 4 hours last night. We basically
was.
spent on MVH last night, and it was tough.
was tough.
It is one of the hardest budgets we've ever had to put together for a department. And I have to commend Randy and Darren for working with us on MVH and sanitation, because they're in a rough spot with MVH restricted. It is really, really tightened down what we can do, and we had to get creative in what can wheel tax fund, what employees are actually working on sanitation sometimes, and can we move some line item budgets over there. So it took a lot. I got to commend Randy and the budget committee last night, and the mayor and the clerk treasurer for that.
Yeah, I think it's very important for the council to understand that Randy's department picks up our garbage, it sucks up our leaves, it does Amnesty Day, when we have a storm, there's multiple things that they have to do. I mean, Deb and I sat down with Randy and Darren for 3 hours one day and just listed all the things that that department does. And they deserve to have funding too. And unfortunately, they were the worst cut this time. And yet, to me, they're a very important part of our city too, because when we need our snow plowed, our trash picked up, our leaves vacuumed up, they're the guys that are out there doing it. So it was unfortunate that we had to try to finagle however we were going to get the job done and cut that budget.
And I just one final point I'll make. I think with MVH restricted, and Nina can talk about how restricted it really is. I mean, it's $750,000 that gets put in a fund. We'll use it to pave roads, but that's money that came straight from the street department's
Randy's
budget.
department.
And the state really has to step up and loosen those restrictions. So cities can use it the way we need to at our street departments, because they're out there, they're fixing our roads, but we can't use MVH restricted
And it's
to
not
fix
just
roads.
us. The county suffers
Right.
because all municipalities.
All municipalities, everyone's facing
And
this problem.
counties.
Right.
AIM tried to encourage legislation. They lobbied to get at least reduce the amount of the MVH restrictions or distributions they have to go in it. They tried to get it to, they wanted 30% instead of the 50. They then tried to negotiate to 40, and it still got struck down. So.
Right.
So maybe they'll try again next year. We should encourage them.
I imagine they will try again next year.
Okay.
So my final question before we, vote, clerk treasurer read this, is this budget sustainable for the city of Portage for the next fiscal year?
I think so. I think so. Not MVH, we know that we're gonna have more cuts, we know that the department will cut that, but it's,
More
that one was hard.
sustainable than it was when we started.
Thank you.
Council members, do you have any more discussion?
My biggest concern is with this budget and the expansion of Portage, all the new homes coming and how we're gonna handle it, like, street department and so forth. That's
Absolutely.
much more.
Well,
That's
police
the
and
big
fire too.
concern, correct?
That expands their territories as well.
Exactly.
Yep.
Everybody's going to be affected when we get 500 new homes.
But and revenue will come with those new homes, it's just
Yes.
gonna take,
gonna-
But it's gonna take time.
yeah.
Right. Because it's
User
in
fees will come
arrears.
right away with trash collection
Yeah,
and
the thought is we're
sanitary
investing
storing, but.
into, I mean, this is a rough patch, and candidly, guys, when you came into office just shy of 2 years ago, you all knew, as well as I did, it was going to be rough sledding. You came into a city that was in real financial trouble, by anybody's reckoning that was watching, including the state. We knew it was going to be trying to keep the wheels turning, get the city expanding, getting new development, getting the tax rates down, which will eventually cut down the tax cap loss. I mean, we're in the briar patch here. And so what you all have been doing is keeping it together, keeping it moving forward, understanding that you are on a ship that's got some real financial struggles.
I mean, State Board almost, they threatened the city to deem the city of Portage as a distressed unit, like Gary Schools. That's how bad it was.
And I mean, a lot of that credit goes to the Board of Works and the mayor's office and the various boards that approve claims. They've gotten much more strict about what's put in front of them and just blanket approving them. I've watched the Board of Works meetings. I know Scott's on the Board of Works. Debbie attends the Board of Works. They watch everything on those claims dockets. And that's something that Board of Works in the past have not done. Things would get through that had no appropriations. There was no way to pay for them. It doesn't come to the council. We approve the budget, but we don't approve claims. And the state puts the Board of Works in charge of that. We rely on the Board of Works to review those claims dockets and make sure that's what we should be spending our money on. So the clerk treasurer, the mayor, the Board of Works, they've really stepped up on ensuring that we're not overspending budgets.
Well, I'll say for my part, first year on the budget committee, it's extremely frustrating for me to dig into these numbers because I believe in what we do here. I believe that everybody is essential and every service we provide is essential. You can't cut anything out. You can't cut out picking up garbage. You can't cut out plowing. You can't cut out police. You can't cut out fire and paramedics. I mean, when you look at the difference between a municipal budget and a federal budget we can debate where to spend money all day long, but with a municipal budget, it is what it is. Our department heads are professionals and they know what it takes to do the job to their standards. And when you don't have the money to be able to give to them to do the job to the standards that they have, it's very frustrating for me. And it should be frustrating to residents too, that we're not able to give the firefighters extra paramedics to be able to service the city's ambulances. And we're not able to give the police department the extra officers that they need to raise up to FBI standards and all the other stuff that they requested and weren't able to get to just be able to do the job. I don't like having underfunded jobs or underfunded departments. It's just kicking a can down the road until one day you're just not able to do it anymore. And so I give big credit to the mayor and the clerk treasurer in doing a lot of foundational work and trying to right the ship. And hopefully in future years, the process will be easier and we'll be able to meet requests. And when you guys come to us, we'll be able to give it to you when you need it. And not have to do bonds or anything like that to try and get you just the essential stuff that you need. So that's my piece. It was frustrating. But like Sue said, it would have been even harder if we didn't have people who were willing to come in a room together and work together.
I think we're ready to vote.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote by the clerk treasurer.
Councilperson Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilperson Podgorski?
Yes.
Councilperson Geishers?
Yes.
Councilperson Williams?
Yes.
Councilperson Gully?
Yes.
Councilperson Zilli?
Yes.
Okay. We have petitions, remonstrances, and public input at this time. If anyone would like to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name. If not, are there any other matters to be considered before this council? If not, I will call for an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is closed.
Vote.